it's too much information, give me the basics. And then there's the others that say, you know, I'm not getting enough. So, you know, how do you measure, I mean.
What I like about the audit, though, is that it is somebody that would come in totally from the outside with a very unbiased perception and would be able to hold, I think it was the national one that I really spent a lot of time reading. I think the state information was pretty minimal, but, you know, focus groups, you know, we survey people to death, but I think doing a focus group would be something that, you know, we would definitely want to do. That way it would help us, you know, a random group of people. I don't know how you would randomly pick people or, you know, how that would come about, but having an outside source kind of pull it together, I think would be very helpful. And then, you know, you'd have an idea, you'd have a better idea, I think, of what the community really wants. Because, you know, I think in terms of surveying, you're either going to get those people that are really upset that are going to fill out the survey, and those people that are really satisfied. And it's usually going to culminate into a very small group of people. So to me, it's not a good representation of the entire district.
Right, and I'm fine with that, as long as there's a measurement of quality and not just quantity.
Quantity, right.
Right, I'm fine with that, as long as there's that, because, you know, I would hate to go through all this and then wind up with, well, if you added just one more letter, you'd be fine,
Right.
but if the letter was no good, we're still in the same boat.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Mark, have you seen any of the reports that the national organization actually produces?
You mean as a result of an audit? Oh.
No.
Like for another school district.
Yeah, to get an idea on what would be
That would be
delivered.
interesting.
Have any of our neighboring districts done an audit that we could contact and say, like, was this beneficial to you? Have you researched that?
To the best of my knowledge, nobody in the township has done something like that. It's not a usual thing that, you know, districts would, you know, invest money in, but I think given where we are, see, when we went to this awards ceremony, there were people who were very active in this organization, and they feature a lot of different communication pieces, from websites to newsletters to, I mean, just the whole gamut. And we were just frankly very, very impressed with, these are typically larger districts that you know, would have the resources for a full-time public relations person. And it was just, you know, we learned a lot and said, wow, this is something we haven't thought of, and so on. And then in talking to some of the people who are employed as, you know, full-time as public relations people, we asked about the organization and what they do. And they said, you know, this is one of the things, you know, where they really recommend, because you get a cross-section of people, and they really give you good feedback. And, you know, for example, on our newsletter was read by representatives outside of Illinois. So it was like Minnesota, you know, Missouri, whatever, in the area, but people that, you know, couldn't be biased as to, because we know you. Mm-hmm. And I do think, you know, with that level of expertise and that they would bring in, the fact that, you know, they're biased to tell us anything good or bad, that we'd say we want the unvarnished thing. I'm sure we could find some direction to say we want you to, you know, talk to a cross-section of people, here are the issues we've had, you know, whatever. I mean, the board could provide that direction.
And you're referring, Mark, to the national organization when you say this?
Well, you could do it with either the state
Right,
or the
with the state,
national,
okay.
but the national would be, you know, more formal process.
How long is that process, do we know?
I don't know exactly how long they would be here.
Perhaps to Gina's question, we could find out an estimate of what that would cost.
That's what I was just going to say. I think I'm hearing enough to say that there might be enough interest, but not necessarily enough interest to say this is something we definitely want to pursue. But I do think what I'm hearing is there might be more of what we'd like to learn more about, exactly what they would do, what they would deliver, you know, whether there are any schools who have been direct recipients of it that we could perhaps get in touch with. So would it be safe to say that although we haven't prioritized what we're going to talk about, we kind of started with number one, that there would be enough interest in at least pursuing this one to get more information? Can I summarize it enough that way?
To get more information of what an audit will do for us.
Right.
What it would
Cost.
And I would even say, you know, if we have time to think about this, and we have some specific questions about it, to forward them to Mark. And perhaps even if we just set a particular date and say, any questions that you might have, forward to him so that he could begin getting that information for us. Mark, would you?
Yeah, just, so I've heard cost, what the report would look like, references of districts that have undergone this.
Length of overall
Yeah,
process.
length of
Yeah, I was gonna
process.
say, how long does an audit take? Months, weeks?
Could we
a
not
whole
have
year?
them just come and present? Take 10 minutes
Maybe
in a
that's a
future board
possibility,
meeting?
too.
And then if questions come up, we can ask them while they're here? It's all about communication. They'd want to
Yeah.
be here for that.
Yeah, could they
good idea.
present, yeah.
Well, and ultimately, what do we hope to gain from it?
You know, which
Well,
is
that's a
good,
question for
because
us.
it's even one of the first things that they list here, and they say, you know, what the first thing they're gonna ask when you call is, what do you want the audit to accomplish for your district service agency, association, et cetera?
And do we know what we want?
I think that's an excellent question.
I mean, we should have some goal in mind before we call. I mean, I would think you
Right,
need to have a
right.
goal.
Well, I mean, wouldn't it really tie back to what we want to accomplish in this entire objective, right? Because I look at this and the question in my mind is, clearly, you know, this says to me that there's some dissatisfaction with communication, right, at some level, but I don't know more specifically what that means. But what is it, I mean, is this objective, is this goal there because we felt like we had to put something there? It kind of highlights to me that there's something that we're trying to accomplish, not just for the audit, but for the overall goal. What is it we're trying to do, right? What problem are we trying to solve?
It's just, I think, our continuous goal. It's been a goal for the board for years.
Let's continue to improve
Right.
and deliver.
Improve it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just, put my opinion, it's not an opinion, it's based on the data we've collected. We don't have any data that indicates we have huge dissatisfaction with the district or the communication. We have, lowest I think on any of those surveys was 82% that when we talked about overall communication, that were satisfied or very unsatisfied. Now, 10% of people who are unsatisfied could seem like a lot of people, but this is not like we're purchasing, we've got some huge communication disaster.
No, we just know that,
No.
especially with what happened last year, with getting the information out to the public about our changing of the format of the report card and everything, we want to be proactive instead of reactive,
Right.
right?
It just, right, and that, I shake my head no, only because I don't want it to be just last year. I mean,
Oh, no. it's-
every single year I've
Right.
been here, there's been an incident or two or three that I mean, you had,
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
right, you had the art, you had the reading, you had this, you had Skyward last year, you had SBG, you got this, it's like, again, my thing, and letters went out. So my personal one, to your stance on a goal would be, I would personally like to see how they would measure the quality. You know what I mean? Because
No, that would be good.
to your reply,
Yeah.
it's like the quantities going out, people are satisfied or very satisfied, etc. Okay, fantastic. I would like to see how they would measure the quality because,
Well, if you-
that's,
I think this kind of sums it up. It says what you'll get from the audit. To me, that sums it up what I think that the effectiveness of your current communication efforts, establishment of priority audiences and best channels to reach them,
What
image of
page
your
are you on?
schools. That's the problem.
Sorry.
I don't know how to tell you guys how to get to this.
At the
It's
top, it
page
says
203.
Is it 203?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And what will I get from the audit? I mean, everything in there is, I think, things that the image of our schools or agency by our staff, our community, our customers, which we think we know based off of our surveys, but is it true? Two-way communication techniques that work by your district. I think that's one thing that we can definitely improve on. And then information frequency desired, again, we've polled that, and we've tried to figure that out. And specific information sought by you for the audit. I said it's all the above. So
Well,
again,
that's like before.
Right,
The
let's
section
draw.
before where it says why choose, why do a communication audit? When's the right time? I mean, there
I
are
know.
6 items there and we touch on 4 of them,
right,
for sure. So,
And I guess another issue here is when, there's dissatisfaction, when you have, it's typically been on some kind of a change. But it was interesting that when we reduced or actually eliminated fees,